a few people who had sent in resumes to the Planning Commission over the summer. So I'm just kind of concerned that none of them were considered either.
All resumes are considered. When this opportunity came up to bring in somebody who can offer a perspective like Jack's, I feel in our planning department feels that's invaluable for planning. And so these Councilor Tribe pointed out a pretty good perspective of what that lens might give us, especially when you get into situations where they had an extreme set of circumstances forcing them to pivot under incredibly arduous, circumstances, so conditions. And so I feel it's important I just feel that experience is important.
Anna? Yeah.
I think the whole multimodal thing is fantastic. Somebody who's familiar with a multimodal traffic being an integral part of the community is really great. And I would very much like to hear from Mr. Powell. I also feel this person is an older, right, 40 plus year career, an older developer, and I feel that these are well represented on the Planning Commission. I think that a Planning Commission that better reflects the diversity and the diversity in every way of the city of Bremerton would be planning for all of us. I think Mr. Powell has many, many places where he could be serving, like complete streets, perhaps, for example. I don't know, but I feel that we've seen this extremely skilled developer person on the Planning Commission quite a bit, and I too would like to hear from different voices. Not to puff off my own constituent, but Grace Crowley had applied for the Planning Commission. And I think a young person who's thinking about Bremerton with the future for their 3-year-old child, how that 3-year-old child will move around and develop and meet people, I think would be really valuable for the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Michael?
Well, so I understand the sentiment that you're both expressing, but can you give me an idea of who else is on the Planning Commission? Because with my experience with Planning Commission, I don't feel like we've ever had this level of really in-depth knowledge. Granted, it could be. I think it could be valuable from when I've sat on it, because and it's not. I don't feel there's any kind of majority of this. There's, I'm trying to remember who's on the Planning Commission. Can we call on Director Spencer?
Oh, please, because I was gonna check in with Director Spencer as well. So
Nobody on the Planning Commission has it.
All right.
thank you.
Consent.
Any other words on councilors?
For this time, but no, it is a struggle sometimes, right? Because I know this application's from a year ago. I noticed that from October 5th, 2023. Yeah. So that's, and I'm just thinking about a process in general, not the person. And so we do get, a paragraph or two. I would like to hear just a little more in depth on the decision-making process and what went into it. I know I've made that request before, Mayor. I think that would be helpful. I would like to look in the future to find a way, if there's maybe a way to do an informal interview. You know, planning commission is an important one, and I don't want to. I want to make sure, you know, if somebody's stepping up to volunteer their time, I don't want it to be any sort of grilling, but just a little get to know them. I don't know this person, you know, good at your experience, but so I got no concerns on this one, but maybe either for retreat or a topic down the line, we could discuss the overall process a little more.
Okay. Well,
Retreat topic, maybe?
that sounds like a good retreat topic. So I understand. I totally understand what you're saying too. And thank you, Director Spencer, for verifying what I was going to ask, which was how many developer types do we have on the Planning Commission? I think that, in my personal opinion, is that Director Spencer, along with Mayor Wheeler, have actually done a good job of diversifying the Planning Commission just recently. We made a couple of appointments recently of some young folks. And I don't have any issues. Do we want to do consent? This is a consent item?
We pretty much always do appointments. As
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I'm just checking in. Jane and Anna.
I guess.
Okay.
I asked every single person I spoke to today, and I named no names, I named no companies. I said, do you think that someone who works for a major developer should be sitting on the planning commission, which among many, many other tasks, revises and creates building permitting regulations? One person said yes. I think it would be a valuable voice, you know, as long as it's not overwhelming. But every single other person was like, no, I think that's a conflict of interest. So I'm just passing that on. If the entire council wants it to go on consent, I'm not going to kick. I'm just saying.
There's an incredible lack of knowledge of what true conflicts of interest are here in Kentucky. And it's come up here again. To make assumptions that people are developers and then to make that statement in a study session based obviously on misinformation or a biased assumption is not fair to this process. It's not fair to our council. And I will say once again, it bothers me that the word development and what it represents in this city is seen as some kind of a foul word. Development is good if it's for our city, if it's for the people who live in our city. It's necessary. If we don't develop, we stagnate and die. That's just a truth. So I've been a little offended during this process. I appreciate the pushback on gosh, it's another older white male, you know, and yet especially when I hear that there's no developer on the planning commission, you need that perspective. You need to find out if an idea is going to pencil out. You need that expertise. It's not a majority on the planning commission. It's a voice, and often it's a voice of information that maybe if we had it, we would recognize those without it. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I think Anna has a valid point that I'll just pass. You can put it on consent. Okay.
All right, we'll have this on consent. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. All right. Next up, we have Public Works Project Manager Katie Ketterer here to present item B2, accept energy efficiency conservation block grant, EECBG, from U.S. Department of Energy. Was this talked about in Public Works or Finance?
I'm sorry, but
sorry, the item B2, which is the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant from U.S. Department of Energy. Was it discussed in any committees?
Yes, it was.
Was it Public Works?
Yeah.
And Jane, was there any lingering questions after that, or do you have any concerns, or did it get a head nod?
It got a head nod. The only thing was the electric bikes for the police. Are they gonna just surplus the other ones because they're not very old?
Okay. So we have a question about the electric bikes for the police department. Maybe you can touch on that in your presentation too. All right. Thank you, Ms. Ketterer. Please take it away.
Yeah, so the Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program is it's funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it's a formulaic grant. So that means that state, local, and tribal governments are eligible for an allocation of the funds based on their population. And our allocation is $76,670. So the program's been around for a little while, and they've been encouraging us to participate in it. Earlier versions of the program, they've included a lot of administrative requirements, which for the size of the grant just, were a little too much for us. However, DOE has really further developed their voucher program and lowered the requirements such that the time is right for Bremerton to take up this opportunity. So the voucher program allows us to purchase qualifying energy efficiency equipment or vehicles. And in collaboration with the police department and our facilities department, we identified a police patrol vehicle replacement that will now be a hybrid vehicle, and 4 e-bikes as fitting uses for this grant program. I don't have a direct answer about whether the old bikes will be surplus or not.
No. Okay. Chief.
We'll continue. Okay. Maybe he'll use it on his Friday ride.
A Friday rides. Okay.
I used it by.
Counselors, any questions? Okay. Yeah, Anna, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Hi, Katie. How's it going? So the hybrid Ford Explorer was going to be purchased next year. Is that correct?
That's right. It's in the replacement for next year. Yes.
Okay, and it was going to, this hybrid Ford Explorer was going to replace a different hybrid Ford Explorer. Am I right on that? I'm trying to get.
It was going to be just a regular Ford Explorer, and now it's going to be the hybrid version.
And the US DOE is okay with the hybrid?
Yes, that is one of their eligible uses.
Okay, no further questions. At least we got 4 bikes. That's pretty great. Do they have a warranty? Are they insured?
They better be.
It's pretty hard to insure a bike. No,
I pay $75 a year.
okay. No, are these going to be insured?
I can't answer that for you at the moment, but I can find out.
It can't be wrapped into the grant, can it?
No, that would be just part of the purchasing of those items.
Okay. And so we're still going to need 50 grand to upgrade the hybrid Ford Explorer.
That's right. Yeah, the grant doesn't pay for the lights and all that good stuff.
That's money Ruth's spent anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Next year.
Council, any other questions before I ask mine?
So the Recon power bikes in the budget already or on the slate to be purchased?
No, this is an added program.
Okay. So what's the, sorry if I missed it, the breakdown in cost between the car and the bikes?
The vehicle was like 46 or 47,000, and the hybrid or the e-bikes were the balance.
Okay. So
They're about 50 with tax, all that stuff.
just due diligence, then the bikes, so they weren't really part of a scheduled equipment plan or slated to be purchased yet, but cheap for the old ones, pretty old.
We have some really decent daily bikes. We have some
Okay.
depending on how many people we put in the field and how many people are trained, then we go deeper into the older bikes. So people like our debt team would probably get more use out of e-bikes and have a lot more range than in the past. But I can still see us using the regular bikes.
Okay, sorry to ask a question, but we have enough personnel that would use the bikes at a given time. I want to make sure we're not buying, we got 20 bikes on hand and only 2 officers that may be out on patrol.
No, yeah. So for special events and stuff, we have people that are trained. So we put like for the parades and things like that.
Okay,
We have to have extra people on the bikes are the best way to do that.
that makes sense. Thank you. Okay. Hold on. No questions.
Okay. Another thing too, I imagine, that you want to be able to have bikes that are back up that are charging if they're, that was my thought. And I'm not an e-bike person, right? So I imagine you would need to have a few extra on hand that are charging while the other ones are being used. Is that kind of what?
No, you need extra batteries.
Extra batteries, the batteries swap out?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need the actual units, you need the batteries. Okay,
Batteries.
all right, fair. Thank you for that clarification. And then something that I know that has happened in our different departments, which it's happened. There's been an allocation for, for a hybrid vehicle, but then they couldn't get the hybrid vehicle, so they have to go with a standard. Is that prohibited under this grant program?
Yes. So we've basically, through our application process, we've told them what we intend to purchase. And if we change that in some way, we would need to go back through the grant application process and let them know and get it approved. So being that this is energy efficient conservation, and which I'm sure is why you're approved for a hybrid vehicle, I guess I would like to see the hybrid vehicle come to fruition and not a standard vehicle. Yeah, a standard vehicle would not be eligible for sure.
Okay.
But if we were going to switch, I mean, even from like a Ford Explorer hybrid to a different brand hybrid, or to like a full electric or something like that, any kind of switch like that would have to go be approved through them.
And to the point of my colleagues here who pointed out something very smart, which is you just need batteries, you don't need the whole bike. Do we have an extra allocation for extra batteries if needed for charging?
Bikes get like 80 miles per charge, so they're pretty hefty.
80 miles is nothing. I don't know, is it? Okay.
You threw it around downtown.
Fill it around downtown, fair enough. Okay, thank you so much. That's all my questions. Any other, yeah?
It's a good one. So if we get to next year and for some reason the hybrid's not available,
Right.
we have to pivot to another thing that fits within the grant.
Buy a million batteries.
That's, yeah, I guess there's some backup behind.
We'll figure something out. Yeah.
It's flexible enough we can.
Yeah.
It'll
And
go
we
in a
have
greener
time.
way,
We also
not
have
a.
time, so it's not like we have to purchase, like if we have to wait.
Okay.
Cool.
Consent? Oh, Donna, go ahead.
Just real quick, like my friend just bought an all electric Kia that has a range of 279 and charges overnight on the same kind of outlet you plug your dryer into. It's an extremely nice vehicle, and it was well under $40-something thousand. So just passing that along. Okay, range of 270 miles.
Thank
These
you.
are still specialized vehicles for the
Right.
police.
They're police department vehicles, which is a little different. They have to be from an approved list for, okay, consent?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Ketterer.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Item 3 was struck. We're going to move to item B4. We're going to welcome Engineering Project Manager Dave Powell here to present item B4, Professional Services Agreement with KC Civil PLLC for construction management services for decommissioned beach sewer OF4 to EB2. So, Public Works Chair, I assume this was discussed in committee?
Yes,
Any concerns, questions, or?
not that I remember.
Okay, all right, just gave it a head nod, right?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Powell, you're up.
Good, thank you. So this contract is for construction management, as you mentioned, on the decommissioned beach sewer project. And we did go to the Public Works Committee with the discussion. And so just by way of summary, this is going to be a complicated project. Construction-wise, there's a lot of different entities involved with this project that we have to coordinate with. So we're going to need to have a full-time construction manager on call for this project. And so we went out and competitively advertised for construction management for this project. We only received one proposal that was from Casey Civil. We've gone back and forth with Mr. Casey a couple of times to negotiate that scope with him. This is a time and materials contract. We feel that it's about right for in terms of the amount of money of this budget. We are going to have a full-time inspector that's a state employee on the job. And so she'll be doing the day-to-day boots on the ground work. So what we're asking for is to move to award the agreement for construction management services for the decommissioning sewer project to Casey Civil PLC in the amount of $277,669, including tax, and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute the agreement with substantially the same terms and conditions.
Any councilors' questions?
Consent as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Anna. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry.
There'll be a full-time city inspector, and then the KC Civil will also provide a full-time construction manager. Do I have that right?
Well, they'll be on call, but full-time in terms of coordination. So we need them to come out in the field and meet with some of the stakeholders to do that. Otherwise,
So they, unlike perhaps a city inspector, are familiar with archaeology and dealing with all the various stakeholders. These are
correct.
13 houses, is that correct?
There's 13 grinder pump stations. There's 12 different properties.
Yeah. My other question is this 277 plus, is that just for fiscal year 2025?
It will be for the duration of the project.
Okay, so
It probably will go into 26.
let us be hopeful.
Yes.
Okay. I had no further questions. Thank you.
I mean, the numbers are pretty clear. I just, councilors, any other questions? Okay. I mean, and you did a good job of highlighting it, but what is, sorry. I guess this isn't of any concern to increase our loan. Director Riley, how much more over time are we paying? When will this particular loan be paid off? Okay, so this was the Department of Ecology loan. And we're asking for an increase in the loan amount. It was originally
I've been asking 2.3.
so what's the percentage rate on it?
1.6.
1.6. Okay. All right. That's not bad. Never, you know what? I'm just going to bypass. It's fine. Consent? All right. Thank you. Moving right along. Thank you very much, Ms. Powell. All right. Okay. Next up, we have item B5, Contract Administrator Melinda Monroe here to present item B5, Contract Modification Agreement number 1 with Common Street Consulting LLC for homelessness response property management program services and budget adjustment. So I don't believe this came to public safety. This is a walk-on. And so Denise, I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions first on this whenever she does her presentation. But Ms. Monroe, please feel free to present.
So we have an administrative update to the contract and to the budget. It's a minor update to the contract, actually 21% in increased costs, but it's due to a higher turn rate than expected in the first year in a program. They had originally expected 21 cases per month on an annual average, and it's 46. So cost rate is higher. So this $46,467.50 is the total increase to the contract for the year, which is still very good. And that's really it. So we'll just check that administrative process and keep the contract in the program moving.
Counselors, any questions? Denise?
So I would assume that Chief Wolf, that you and we're gonna, adjust it, and this is well for our estimate for our budget for next year. Based on these new numbers. So, okay, and that's already going on. All right. Well, I guess I'm not surprised. For one thing, we are looking forward, I think everybody is, to having an amount of time to look back on and seeing what the impact is anecdotally. We hear that things are going well, despite some hiccups, as there will always be when working with a bunch of different agencies and really at risk population. But I would look to my other public safety or finance committee members.
So on that note, anybody else on public safety would like, yeah, Jane, go right ahead.
So it's not so much a question about that, but it's coming from the parking fund.
It is, and there is a, as you know, parking fund balance. And as we talk internally, that was just a recommended resource for the year. So I think probably
picture it somewhere within our garages or impacted, so that as a next there will be utilize existing fund balance. Outside of, the resources, obviously type of the general fund, which is funded this program. Parking get not contributed to part of that contract, which everybody should and can. So this portion is like a fair share of what the impacts are on parking, the parking lots or slot size street. And
So in the past, before they built the condos down here, we had big parking lots, and the money from that went to support our actual parks. So that's where we lost a lot of funding for parks when they put up the buildings, right? So is any of this parking funds still going to support our parks, or is that in a totally separate? We got rid of that. So none of our parking lots pay into the parks department at all?
I don't recall them ever doing that.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. When was this?
When they built the condos. So that was what, 2002, 2003?
Oh, prior to 2008.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was before then.
20 years ago.
But remember, we used to have those huge surface lots that were like where the condos are.
Mm-hmm. We did.
And that's what paid for parks.
So
The good old days.
I wish Eric was here.
I know there's a arrangement downtown where our parks affect they maintain the portfolios and boardwalk being part of the parking lots. There might have been a payback because the parks to take care of that. So I'm not aware. That would be, but no.
Okay, so it's not a funding source for parks. That was my major concern. I'm glad they're finding more people to work with, so I have no problem with increasing it. It's not a whole lot.
Yeah, no, the value
Mhm.
seems to be a good deal.
Yeah.
We could get more into this in budget season. When they say 21 cases per month and then 46 per month, is that, do you know how cases are defined? Is that like, I'm assuming that's not one interaction, because it would have been like less than one interaction per day.
Do you want? Can you speak to that?
Go of what that means.
I think it's one-on-one interaction per person, is my understanding. And if they open up a case on each individual that they're working with to figure out what service they need, what service they can get them, what service they're willing to accept, or if they're one of the about 30 or 40 people just flat refusing to ask for it. So they kind of categorize them.
Okay, that makes sense.
So essentially they're
More.
it's not that they necessarily, let's say it's 46. Not necessarily 46 success stories, but 46 people that they've tried to get into
Active
shelter. Yeah.
engagement with.
Yeah. And our success stories, because our shelter's still up, like we've not seen in any previous.
Mhm.
I want to be cautious about using language like success stories. I know we want to have success stories, but I think that this is, you never know. I don't know. That's just me personally.
Okay, yeah, just
The workers
the chief
might
had mentioned some folks, not being able to reach or something. Phrase it that way.
No.
That was good. So for, I think this makes sense for the end of the year. I think just when we go to budget season, like to revisit the data and effectiveness and due diligence there.
Okay.
But just to understand a little more on what statistics again.
Okay. Thank you for that. I agree. Anna.
Thanks. Hi. So I think a 21% increase in this is fine. I'm a little concerned that neither Mr. Perko nor Ms. Munson is with you to answer day-to-day questions. So I will ask you, and whatever you don't know, you don't know. One of the big reasons that this council was so excited about Common Street was that we would be getting data. And this is something that Chief Wolf emphasized quite rightly as a real advantage to, this is for City of Bremerton, this is kind of a large contract. The thing is that the data, we've seen one set of data, and it's not the kind of data that enables this council to say, here's the size of our population, here's what their most common difficulties are. Like, for example, they have to put ID together, right? What are the problems? Because we can't recommend solutions without the data. So this isn't, are you gonna answer? I don't know.
Well, I actually, I think it's good to get that feedback, so I don't mean to cut you off at all, but I can definitely, I'll just say that as of tonight, who's present, that was entirely me, because I view this simply as an administrative change. So it's moving along.
Yeah.
So that was certainly not, I think everybody was ready to be here with more than anything you would like. But I think it's really great, actually, just to kind of use this as a sort of a preemptive time to get that feedback from everybody here as to what you'd like to see in the future. So, yeah, that's good to hear. And I do have some data just as far as, the number of cases a month and how that analyzed, but really just sort of from that administrative point. So, I think that would be good to have. And, I just know that everybody was standing by here, so that really was just sort of a choice on mine, like this journey going,
Yeah. I have no quarrel whatsoever with any of the Common Street people I've met. I have great respect for them. I just like to know how we can be of more use. And right now, nothing's telling us that. That's it.
My understanding is that they serve a role of triage, come into contact, quick initial screening. But engagement, and then try to get them referred to other agencies. It's those agencies, I want you to correct me, it's those agencies that then do a deeper dive into what their specific needs are. Reason I know this is because we worked at the YWCA with the Housing Solutions Center all the time, KCR, I know how all that happens. And that the data is there, not in common. I don't think we're doing an in-depth about, causes or anything like that, but there are agencies that they're referred to that do. Is that, I don't want to assume, she will.
Just anecdotally, just this last couple of weeks, we have a prolific house. There's been a prolific house for so long now. And APS has been one of our local partners that we have been very frustrated. We had an all-hands meeting, and we invited Common Street because of their knowledge base. Well, Tricia, that you've met from Common Street, has relations down in Olympia. So she's on the phone to Olympia saying, here's what we have. And they're giving her and us a whole different story than we were getting local. So that lit a fire. And now suddenly things locally have changed greatly. And it was because of that partnership. There's one, gigantic problem house that, I don't have to tell you that, this you all know, that we've been dealing with forever. And this was one problem that we couldn't get our other agencies off the dime. And because of their knowledge and expertise and partnership outside of our county, that made that happen. So we're just starting to tap into them. Is I guess my point is, holy smokes! I'm
I
amazed.
certainly hope the relationship is not adversarial.
No, not at all. That's the cool thing is, everybody that, especially
Would our partners
that gives them
describe it
identity.
the same way that you are?
Our team,
Okay.
everybody from Salvation Army, they can't, they fall all over themselves when they talk about on the street community. They love them. And anybody and everybody that wants to come in and get this thing done, because that's the goal. That's how,
That doesn't really,
So I've been out on,
I just wanted to know where the
I've been out
information
to
was.
a couple of encampments with Tricia, and some of the things were a little different. For example, women who have dogs to protect them, they have nowhere to leave those dogs.
Mhm.
Like they can't go over to the Social Security office, even if someone is giving them a ride, because there's nowhere for the dogs. Putting together identification is, the complete suite that you need is really difficult.
I think we're getting into.
Yeah.
We
Sorry.
don't- This is not our role. Our role is not to tell a contractor or staff who are running a program how to do it. And so I guess I was hearing a request for an in-depth data from Common Streets about causal factors and all of that. And I was trying to find out, are we already collecting that somewhere? And I don't think I heard.
Brendan and Aaron gave
No, that's
a
good.
report.
Yeah, I didn't.
I did. And they were planning on having them do that quarterly, so there should be.
So we're due.
Great.
Okay. So we'll look
Wonderful.
Yeah.
forward to the next
Same
data
kind of presentation.
presentation. Counselor and Jane, I want to give you space, but I also kind of want to check in after you. Oh yeah, Kylie.
Just also, they can maybe present to public safety and then have
Yes.
safety.
Yeah.
Council, that might be a good use.
Although I do think that all council likes to interact with them. So maybe us reporting out isn't the same as them coming to a study. I don't know. I reported that. I don't want to limit council engagement when there's been a lot of interest.
At the same time, if they have a packet that has data that they can deliver to us, then they don't necessarily have to come to all of council. They can deliver that packet. We can have it delivered to us for review after it comes to public safety. Jane.
So Anna's initial question was, or Jeff's was, what's a case? So I think it's very appropriate for all of us to ask how that is being defined. And it's not, I don't think it's getting into their business by asking them how they're defining or we're defining what is a case.
So two completely separate issues.
No, because this is based.
As somebody who used to manage caseworkers, I know what a case is. It's a case that you open on an individual and try to track that person, try to help that person. It has a case number, it's identified. It's not the number of interactions. It's the number of individual people.
Denise,
completely different.
It says it went from 21 cases to 46 cases.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to figure out. What is a case? And that was the question.
Okay, I'm gonna point of order between both of you here. Just what I hear Denise saying is providing her expertise in case management. That a case definition might be something where there's actually a file that's open and that person is tracked. Chief Wolf, is that kind of what we're defining as a case with Common Street?
That's my understanding, but what we will do is get that answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Michael.
Well, a little bit still on that, but I feel like they explained this to us. They They meet with somebody. If that person seems receptive, then they try to continually find that person, meet that person. So that's a case. They might move away, drop off. Something could happen and they'll do it. But this is somewhat of a rolling number. This is how many cases. This is not, they estimated they would have 21 people who would be willing to work with them. It turned out to be more like 40 something. So that's why there's the adjustment. So it seems like it's working.
Really good.
Yeah.
I think, but I would love to get, especially before we roll into budget, it'd be great to get some more information.
And I want to reiterate that we're dealing with a transient population. So, folks, Kylie, do you have something important to add to this conversation, or can I go ahead?
Anything important?
Can I go ahead and ask? Do we want to put this on general or consent? Kylie, go ahead.
I'm going to point out what the chief is just saying. Keep in mind that stuff that also wasn't really contemplated at the outset of using common street. That's an abatement property.
Yes.
On private property where we have a warrant abatement. So I just wanted the council to be aware that that's an additional use of this contractor that I don't think we were really contemplating using it. It was invaluable. And just as a point of reference, someone who was actually picked up on a warrant by BCC, Trish has parents at the jail to go and meet with people. And so she was going to go and connect with that person to try to get some services on board with them so that they had.
That'd be great data to have. How much of it was related to, property and,
unanticipated.
Yeah.
Them in a way that when we originally were engaging them back in January is different. That I would say that their role in working with the city has expanded also. So I just want council to know that, because I think everyone knows we're talking about with the abatement now. That really wasn't what we were thinking of, but it's been great. It was a way to connect people with resources in that context, and we weren't even thinking about it before we started working with it.
Consent or general?
Consent.
Consent. Thank you, Ms. Monroe. All right. Next up, we have City Attorney Kylie Fennell here to present item B6, proposed public hearing for resolution and support / opposition of Washington State Ballot Initiative 2117 concerning carbon tax credit trading. Did we discuss this in any committees?
We did not.
No, we've just kind of been kicking it around, and I know you've been doing some research, Attorney Fennell. So I will defer to you for your presentation.
Sure. So this is a process that's allowed under state law that generally prohibits the use of public facilities, support or oppose a ballot measure. And I cited the RCW there on the agenda bill so that you can see it. Authorizes the council to take action to express a collective decision, in this case, a resolution to either support or oppose a ballot measure, and specifically related to Initiative 2117, which is a initiative concerning carbon tax credit trading that is on the ballot in November. So the resolution as presented is drafted. It says support / opposition. Obviously, it doesn't get passed that way. If the motion were to adopt a resolution supporting, the part where it says opposition would be removed. If it was to adopt a resolution opposing, and the part where it says support would be removed. So I hope everyone can follow along that. It's written neutral in your packet. It is not going to look like that if the council passes a resolution one way or another. Of course, another option that the council could do is to not take a position on this at all. A few things as far as housekeeping and how this works. We've been noticing a public hearing for the meeting next week. And that would go in, talk to Angela, go into the paper on Friday. Everyone who appears gets equal time. That's consistent with our normal processes, but we will need to be very careful that is adhered to. We've been doing a great job of that, so I'm not concerned about that at all. That is a requirement under state law. And then the same actually goes for council members in speaking as well. So whoever chairs the meeting, Chamberlain do a great job at just making sure that council members also have equal time to express their views.
Okay.
I'm not saying you have to limit people to 3 minutes, but there is mention of council members in the state law as well.
Okay.
That it be equal. And like I said, this is sort of a different than our normal process where council members will be able to talk about their position on the ballot matter in their colloquy with their colleague on the dais. And that's it. The only other issue that I wanted to bring to your attention is that some cities I've noticed have limited public comment to writing and in-person comments. And I'm not sure if that's done specifically because it's an issue of state concern and they want to manage their meeting so that the comments and commentors are really geared toward this council to passing a resolution rather than, you know, I guess just feelings on the issue generally. But that's not a requirement. You don't have to do anything differently. But I have noticed that some people, some other cities have, and we have done that as well. We did that whenever we did the resolution. So,
Okay.
that would be something that I would need to probably want to note on the notice for public hearing is just, we're going to take a departure from that.
I think I have a plan, and councilors, let's talk about this now for how we're going to manage our time. So you have a plan for the public, which is offer a certain amount of time for pro and con. No?
Just 3 minutes each. I think we are, from what I've researched, that there was discussion initially about whether
So regular public comment.
regular public
Okay.
comment, just make
People
sure
can
you
come up and
pay really close attention to the time. We certainly, you've done a great job. What I'm saying is we just want to make sure that we're really on it. That no one goes over.
And so we don't have to say the first half is for pro, the second half is for
No, I
con.
think
Great.
3 minutes per person. And yeah, I think that's.
And so what I also want to clarify too, what feels intuitively just better to me is if rather than a debate, we have time, a certain allotted amount of time per counselor to speak on the issue. Is that kind of what you're saying as well? Like each counselor will get 3 to 5 minutes or 5 minutes equal time. Tell me how you would prefer for us to set that up.
So the state law just says that council members are afforded an approximately equal opportunity to express an opposing view. And so I think generally
I don't know how much debate there's going to be, to be honest, right?
Well, that's kind of
opposing for opposing out this.
Amongst each other. I think what would be problematic, for example, is if by way of perhaps, let's say, the way that the discussion was being managed, that for whatever reason, like someone didn't get a chance to speak and they had an opposing view, maybe a motion was called for and it's like, no, you know, that I think
procedure is going to be important.
Procedure is going to be important to just make sure everyone gets a chance to speak.
All right, everybody.
I don't think we have to overthink it. I think our normal processes are generally fine. I just want to make you aware that.
I just want to make sure to call on each
person,
counselor to make sure that they have an opportunity to speak on the issue.
Right. And the same thing is we start doing multiple rounds that we don't get cut short before we get back around to everyone.
I have a feeling this will be a one round, but we never know.
Public question.
Yeah, go right ahead. I just want to make sure I got procedure. Let me make sure. I just want to make sure I got procedure down beforehand. So public comment doesn't have to be a pro and okay, it can just be whatever public comment, 3 minutes each, same as we were doing before. And then I want to make sure calling every counselor to afford them a relatively equal opportunity. If we get into a second round, I'm going to call on every counselor again. Okay. All right, Denise, go right ahead. Or Jane, were you first? I apologize.
It doesn't matter.
Let's go to Denise first, public safety, and then to Jane. I don't know, public safety.
Well, what if I think it would have been more appropriate in public work? Because my question is, could we? And my understanding is we need to be educational with this as well. So could we include in the whereases the money that's on the line, the projects that are on the line, because if this is an educational opportunity, which it sounds like it is, yay or nay, right? And I think we've got a lot of yays on the council.
Well, I mean, that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, but I think, I'm gonna make an assumption.
A person, if the council wanted to include, let's say an addendum to a resolution with the fiscal impacts that are like maybe listed on the agenda bill. I've seen some cities do that. They say, whereas the anticipated fiscal impact,
Because that's the reason for many that we would be doing.
Sure, I will say
Not
keep in
many,
mind,
maybe.
yeah, I will say keep
It's
in
not
mind.
just a political statement.
I will say keep in mind though that
Not
this is where City of Olympia one time went awry. It is not, even if the council passes a resolution in support or opposition, you're not then given like a pass to outdo any sort of activities that are outside the normal course. So like, for example, in the case for the BCC, and it be a passed a resolution on a separate, it's a different initiative, and then did public outreach urging people to vote in accordance with what the council had passed.
Postcards or something.
No, I'm wondering why couldn't it be used in the regular whereases? Since one of the reasons the city council is encouraged to get involved with this in the first place is fiscal responsibility. So I was given the impression that as long as, we state the facts, much as Mayor Wheeler did, in the Sun, when he was asked about this, things are on the line, right? So if we're going to use the opportunity.
I will say that in seeing the approaches that other cities have taken, it is difficult to really pin some of that down. And what I can make, there is in the packet, I'm not sure when you downloaded it, there's a email from Brian McConaughey, the lobbyist, and that's different than what's in the agenda bill. And so what we know is that this is a revenue stream, and that if it did not exist, then there would be less revenue to go around. What does that specifically translate into on a project by project basis? It's really difficult to determine, because if it wasn't there, then the legislature would certainly
we would certainly try.
Well, right, and there would be it would be difficult to say X would not happen because of that, with the type of certainty that maybe that people
certainly won't happen in the time frame that we're using now.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what Brian indicated is the one Ridge project.
Yeah.
Was the funding. And then
the whole second phase.
But they're going to have to, at the state level, they're going to have to try to figure out the best way to spend the funding. And we don't really understand what the impact should be.
Jane?
I don't really understand why we can do this, but we weren't allowed to take a stand on the local school bonds, and why at the beginning of every meeting, Jennifer makes a statement that it's election season and we can't talk about elections, but we can do this. And
the RCW 4217A 555 sub 1. So
difference the public hearing.
Yes, and it's also the council action. And so what was being proposed previously with the school district was to come and do an informational session to the council. And when we checked with the PDC, they felt that was using public facilities to promote a ballot measure, because it was the agency that was running that. And so we could have done a similar process to this.
Mm-hmm.
But have the proposal at that time was to have people come in from the school district and do
So I mean, we stopped them from talking.
At public comment?
Yeah.
Well, normally, like if someone came on a regular public meeting where it's not the public hearing related to action under this code, then that is the use of public funds and they do need to be, a use of public facilities, they need to be stopped. So the only time that you can talk about the ballot measure is when you're doing
A resolution.
when you're doing the process as outlined under this code. The rest of the time, public.
So this is my response to that, because I didn't like how that, I wanted to be able to take a stand on the bond as well. We didn't do it in a timely fashion to do it properly. So this is us doing better according to the RCW for taking a stance. Michael.
So I'm feeling like the discussion is starting with, we want money. And I think the discussion needs to start with, we believe the climate is changing.
Yeah.
And we believe we need to do something with it, right? So that's the cap.
Mm-hmm.
And the trade sort of is the benefit of those dollars that become available that can help do other sort of, we'll call them green projects that we could be the benefit of, like the ones that are coming. But I just don't want us to be I just don't want us to be like, we
want this money.
We need to be up there and say, we believe that the climate change is real and happening.
Is real.
And this is a step in the right direction, and we support that.
So
I don't believe in climate change because we can get money for something. I believe in climate change.
But there are people out
Let's
there.
just, what's the purpose of tonight?
save this discussion.
The procedural stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I want to use our time with tonight. And
Okay.
You guys will have
We'll have our time to discuss the merits.
the merits of.
Counselors, any other questions regarding procedural?
I think we should get 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the public does.
Sure. I was suggesting that at the beginning. So
Yeah.
we'll each get 3 minutes as counselors, and hopefully, and I don't feel comfortable having too much debate. I don't know if we're going to have any debate.
Yeah, and remember, it's not about us.
Yeah. And so, Anna, please go right ahead. Anna, go right ahead.
Okay. I think I'm hoping that one thing you can do, as this is rather confusingly framed, is that by voting no, we are keeping the Climate Commitment Act, right? This is something that, again, I talked to a lot of people. If, like, when you oppose 2117, you want to keep the Climate Commitment Act because the climate crisis is real.
I think, that's something that.
That's all in your
Opposition generally.
We'll clarify that at the beginning of the hearing. Absolutely. Because that is confusing. It's what happens when,
Right.
Okay, counselors. So we'll be prepared for this. Jeff, final thoughts? Or do you have a question?
I just want to make
Oh,
sure.
sorry.
Okay.
First and final.
First,
Last but not least.
that's what I said. I like the suggestion of using attachments we have, and then I like limiting it to in-person or write-in only.
I would prefer.
Concern me about people from all over the state wanting to come.
I would prefer not to have Zoom comments. What I will do is the same procedure, which is allow if somebody wants to have special permission. For instance, and I'm just going to publicly state it, Marwan Cameron has asked for permission to speak via Zoom in perpetuity. Basically, at all the meetings, it's been granted.
Yeah.
We know who Marwan is, right? So if there's anybody that wants to reach out and have something like that, or for this specific thing, then they're welcome to do that by contacting our clerk. Or they can also contact city.council@ci.bremerton.wa.us, and we can defer them to Hoover or myself to grant that permission.
So just to be clear, if somebody from Yakima wanted to come and comment on that.
They would need to get permission from me through Angela or through Lori Smith in order to have that public comment via Zoom.
Can I check, is that can we do that on a case by case basis legally, or does it have to be anyone who requested is allowed?
So, as I understand it, it's just if someone makes the request, it's not that you'd be denying people, right?
I wouldn't be denying people, but I think I would be asking critical questions of these individuals. What is your district? Where do you reside?
I don't think. I don't know.
You can't?
That's a registration thing. So.
You can't ask people where they reside in order to do public comment within our city. Okay.
Well, yeah.
You can tell them
You
that
don't have to be a resident to make public comment.
but then they're not obliged.
No, I mean anyone can come to public comment.
That's true.
In person and make a comment.
I don't see this being a deluge of interlopers. What I like to do is I like to have a personal connection with somebody whose name I don't recognize. So I will call somebody and talk to them, make sure that they're a real person.
If we get, let's say we get 1 or 2 requests, like fantastic. If we all of a sudden get 30 or 40 requests coming in, is it possible to pivot and say in person only?
Probably not. They got to do the.
So
They got to do the public
decide
comment.
otherwise. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the whole hand raising thing. It's not working out. I think it would be really great, based on all the other times that we have listened to storms or deluges of public comment, if you could state from the beginning that council tentatively vote, council is supporting this thing as either
No.
we're supporting or opposing.
Yeah.
We can't say that.
Because that's the whole public hearing thing, and we can't talk about like what we have voted here.
We have not voted on anything here. We are not stating an opinion. This is because we can't in this meeting.
Hold on.
So that's something that happens after public comment. So to your point, if we get a deluge of 30 or 40, I just don't, is that happening in other municipalities? Are you reading something through that's happening in other municipalities? Is that a valid concern?
It's a concern. Just thinking ahead, like one of the discussion.
Worst case scenario kind of thing?
We could also allow, you can submit video comments through the city council website. Email as well. You can use your phone and make a comment and send it. You can also call me with voicemail. And
I just don't want to change the procedure that we have in place for other items. I think it's fine.
okay. So do you just want to leave it how it is? Okay.
Sounds good.
With any item for public comment, there's the option to get permission to speak publicly on any item on our agenda.
No.
Well, no, it's just public recognition.
Special.
Right.
Okay.
That's a special.
All right.
Yeah, so it's fine. We can just leave it how it is. It's probably not going to be a big issue. I just thought I was going to throw that out there because I noticed it. So if we want to have it just it's our regular thing, that means people on Zoom can make comments.
Okay.
Or we can not have.
I have extended that to in a couple different circumstances. So I just want to keep the procedures the same.
As public recognition that we have currently.
Right.
Wait a minute. Public hearings, we also let people speak via Zoom.
So
This is a public hearing.
And this is a hearing.
Yeah.
That's the concern is right now, consent agenda, public hearings, any item is open to Zoom, whoever logs on.
Except for public recognition.
Except for public recognition, that's our exception. So I'm good with treating it the same way we do public recognition with the advance notice needed. Otherwise it's in person. Because I am concerned if we treat it like any of our normal other items and it's just open to whoever logs on.
Well, if somebody logs on and is rude or crude, we can shut them off.
It's
No.
On that item you can because
if they're off topic.
if they're off
They're off
topic.
topic.
Yeah, this was not about being rude or anything. This was just the idea that this was an issue of state concerns with outside of our normal, where normally our items are like of local concerns. This is a state concern. I noticed that several councils had limited their public comment to in person and write-ins. And I don't know for sure if we're going to have, 300 people on our Zoom that want to make comments and they'll each get their 3 minutes, or if there will be a handful of people. All I was saying is we have done that before where we've departed from a regular process when we did the resolution on the definition of anti-Semitism. We did not take online comments for that particular item. And I was throwing it out there that we could also not take Zoom comments on this particular item if the council wanted. If the council doesn't want to change procedure, that is fine. I don't know that we'll have 300.
Can I just get does anybody have any, to Jeff's point, do you have any preference?
I like the same thing we've done for public hearing right
Yeah.
along. So
I'd say get rid of Zoom. I'm sorry. I'd say get rid of Zoom. Anybody that can handle the technology of Zoom should be able to listen.
Denise, how do you feel about it?
Like for everything
enough?
all the time?
No, for this public hearing.
Nobody asked me that. But my answer would be yes.
Okay. Do you want to keep
That'd be great.
keep it to no Zoom?
Yeah.
No Zoom. Jeff, what's your preference?
I'm fine with no Zoom.
No Zoom?
All the time.
And I'd like.
Always no Zoom.
All right.
My concern is if a political group out there, says, oh, Bremerton's discussing this, and they send an email to,
Okay.
thousands of their people.
Mhm.
I don't want
I'm going to defer to the wisdom of the team on this one. So we'll
There's a
restrict
sentence
it.
you seldom hear.
All right, counselors, we will,
To manage.
Yep.
It's not going to restrict content on.
We will
have to
manage
Make sure that's very clear that we're not.
the
gonna
meeting.
restrict.
absolutely. We'll manage the meeting by allowing in-person and write-in and video comments are another option.
What?
Video comments, according to Attorney
You can
Cole.
take a
Via
video.
email.
And they can email it.
Via
We're
email.
we're not gonna air them.
No,
No.
you'll get them in your email.
And so and that information will be included in the packet. So thank you for that feedback on that. All right,
But
yeah, Jane.
I think we should do that all the time and not make this the.
Right, let's say germane, you can bring it up and go to the order if you'd like.
It's germane.
It's not germane if we're talking about,
I almost think that now's a better time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it
Because
doesn't,
it's like this.
so because it doesn't seem, and it's a study session.
but now it's not because we're on item B6. And this is more, if you want to, can we circle back to it under general counsel?
So that's 15.
If there's consensus on it, I can draft a resolution change to the council rules of procedure and have it back for the next study.
Okay. All right.
For your
What about-
guys' consideration.
I have a
How are you
concern
guys?
for
That's requiring to come back to the office.
Come on, I'm trying to keep us on track here, folks.
I have concern for people who are actually disabled.
I know, me too. That's the thing. There are people that I really want to hear from that are homebound or they're disabled or they're at work.
I don't feel like we're hearing from them now. And, other technologies have existed long before Zoom.
They can call in.
Counselors, I do.
We could air their video testimony received. via
I
email.
really like to hear people's voices.
I know.
Yeah. No, I like Zoom comments as an option personally.
We get so few of them.
But for this, let's move
All
on.
the time we spend, is there somebody online? There's nobody online. Like, can you,
It's not that much time.
can you
It
undo?
seems
It's
like
literally like,
really
is everybody
does seem
online?
like it.
Nope, okay. Let's move. I give a lot of space for
Are
them.
you sure? I know.
It's like a seance. Are you there? Are you there?
Sometimes people, they work up the courage to come up, and I want to give that space for it.
It's COVID triggering. That's what I'm saying.
So we're gonna move on.
It's a rough
So
year.
no Zoom for this public hearing. We can circle back on the other thing for good of the order. I want to just talk about procedurally the rest of this meeting real quick because we have some changes potentially, but I want to see where you guys, how you feel with this. So the next item is item B7 with Garrett Jackson, and I would like to let you know also that in the comments, Judge Flood is here and she's ready to present, although I have deferred them to the 23rd. She says she's not available the 23rd. So, and this is in the chat. So I'm happy to entertain the idea of bringing her back for her presentation after the agenda briefing items, but I don't know if that's really appropriate since we've moved on. So I wanted to check in with you before Garrett's presentation, because I know we're going to want a break soon. Council, do you want to defer this to 10:23, or would you like to give space today or another future study session? Because I know that we have moved on and it is getting pretty close to 6:30.
I like keeping it on the 23rd. It's information only. There's no action that we need to take.
I don't think that she's available the 23rd. I'm sorry.
Okay, then the next study session after that.
Okay, we're going to go into budget workshops and then it will be the study session after that. Denise?
But it's information only. That's because.
I know in public safety, we deferred it to study session because she was going to be presenting. There were a lot of questions around, is it budget related? Will this be presented as part of the budget? I certainly don't want to deny her the opportunity to educate us a little bit. Will it, Mike Riley, can I put you on the spot here a little bit and just say, is the presentation that Judge Flood is making or would be making
Well, Judge Flood-
related to
is here.
Oh,
So she's right here. I mean, is
is
this
it going to be made during budget?
There's a budget request, that will have space to.
No, this is not a
Different?
part of the budget.
Okay.
I would say, when I say not a part of the budget, it's information that USS City Council has asked the court for, and we're providing it. I believe that with Kyle Landry here from the state, he would not be available to provide some factual statistics that we have available tonight to provide, that won't be available at the later date.
Yeah, and so counselors, anybody else, do you have any opposition to us bringing her back for presentation? We'll do it after a break is the thing, Judge Flood, because we do need to have a break soon after. And Mr. Jackson, how long is your presentation? Okay, so the order that I would put you in, counselors, Jeff, what are your thoughts? I'm just looking at you here. Okay.
They're here.
They're here. Yeah, Jane, public safety, do you have any, okay, Michael, do you have any issue with putting them back onto this? Okay, all right, so, and counselors, do you want to have a break now, or do you want to have a break? Okay,
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna take, I just look right at Michael says no break. We're working till the end. We're going to take a break now until 6:30. We'll do, Mr. Jackson will do your presentation, and then Judge Flood will do your two presentations, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right, council, I'm going to break up till 6:30. And we really are back. Okay, I call the meeting back to order. I'm going to welcome Planning Manager Garrett Jackson, who has already seated himself here at the table to present on item B7, an overview of the 2024 comprehensive plan housing element. This item, let me slow down. This item will be heard under general business for a full presentation to receive public comment only at the next meeting, right? Okay, great. All right, Mr. Jackson, take it away. Oh, yeah, let me get you there.
Sorry.
Not a problem. I'm going to make you a co-host. Do you have sharing capabilities now? Okay.
Okay. We are here to talk about the housing element. Before we get started, I do have dates set with Jennifer, Liz, and Jane for council district meetings in their individual districts, so we can talk about the DEIS with your constituents. Please feel free to reach out. We will be issuing the DEIS this month. The comment period runs to the very beginning of December. So ideally we speak with your constituents during that time so they have plenty of time to comment.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So we will start the meeting next week with the general review that we'll go through every time just to make sure that citizens in the audience are caught up to speed on what the general comprehensive plan is, growth management planning. If I hear an objection, I can go through this, but otherwise I'll just flip through the slides because the council's for this portion before. Our regional growth centers, our growth strategy, and then just letting the public know that we have a variety of videos on our website, Bremerton2044.com. If they've missed anything with City Council, it's all recorded and available for them to see. Reviewing the milestones we've covered with council thus far, land use element last month, housing this month, and then moving into the housing element itself and reminding members of the public that the draft comprehensive plan, including the housing element and the housing appendix, are available on Bremerton2044.com. There are a number of links into planning commission packets, also available in your packets. We have a number of factoids available in the housing element and the housing appendix. We chose a couple of those to discuss with the public to describe housing in the city. This first is a chart showing the year that the housing in the city was built. And the majority of not majority, but a great share of that housing was built before 1960. And then another trend to take note of is that dip in housing production in the 2000s. So one, showing an aging housing stock, and two, a dip in housing production, which likely contributed.
So since 2020 has only been going on for 3.5 years, is that not in part? If you could go back to that slide, sure, please. Like, so how long is the data for 2020 or later?
And this is what's available from the Census Bureau. So this is supposed to be a snapshot in time. So from that 2022, that doesn't look terribly, that could be updated, I suppose, but to get the best estimate for how many we produced in 2022, I suppose.
I mean, I think the problem's real, but I also think that
it's not accurate. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thinks.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. Well, before the meeting next, we can make that bar a little more representative of 2022. But then it won't be that census data, so we can just kind of amend the source.
You guys might have the numbers
For 2023 too.
you know.
Sure. And this is more of a snapshot in time of general trends, not up to the pulse conditions in the city.
can you do like 2010 to 2012, for example?
You're asking if we can change the chart to be from 2010 to
Census
2012?
data is every 10.
That's every
Right.
10 years.
Right, but They also publish estimates at intervals. That's how come we have 2022.
We're seeing, you're doing it essentially by decade here. So if there is some sort of general council direction to try to do that.
Hold on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. But that lack of housing production has led to an increase in housing prices. So here is a chart that shows median rental housing price from 2010 to 2022 in Washington, Kitsap, and Bremerton. And while Bremerton is lower than those other jurisdictions, it has climbed significantly during that time from about $800 in 2010 to up to around $1,400 in 2022.
May I ask clarifying questions about this? It doesn't really, gross rent that's so broad. Is broad meaning 1 bedroom versus 6 bedroom house, right? Is it based on 1 bedroom housing?
It's a median. So it's just what the median rental prices are. It's not broken down.
I know.
And census data it's unlikely that it's going to get that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
The key thing I get from this though is that like our trend mirrors other trends. Like
it's literally my rental trend since 2010.
It's clearly everybody's, but at least it didn't we didn't cross over the state or the county and become.
We're more affordable than Kitsap, basically, is the takeaway. But thank you, Mr. Jackson. I apologize.
I guess my look is that it's not a unique Bremerton problem. We didn't necessarily cause this. We didn't.
Right. Thank you.
It's horrible.
Thank you for the time.
Somehow. You didn't start the fire, right? But that's some good news that our poverty rate peaked in around 2015 at 21.5%. And it has continued to decline to our 2022 estimate of around 14% poverty rate in the city. There are a plethora of charts and point in time data points in the housing element, housing appendix. These are just a few that we thought we might share rather than providing kind of data overload.
Good chart.
Getting into the housing element, the vision. You've already gone through that vision, goals, and policies with the city council. So we'll keep it just to the vision for the public, which is to encourage the growth of Bremerton by strategically locating a wide variety of housing types throughout the city in a way that protects the environment and fosters health. And also that moves into our regional housing strategy brought to us by PSRC that's incorporated into our vision, goals, and policies of the housing element. And that circles around 3 very basic, easy to understand topics of supply, stability, and subsidy. And how does that affect us here locally? And so we have a chart where these things intersect. That's where affordable housing can be made. And that the supply side,
our infographics.
Private sector, housing agencies, and local government will drive each one of these spheres. How do we interact with that here as a local government? Largely that's through our land use regulations. And that's with how high can you build? How dense can you build your housing? And what uses are allowed in individual zones. We have control over that housing restriction. Additionally, providing predictable permit times. We can continue to fine tune that locally to make the creation of housing more predictable. So that is the supply portion and how we can affect that in local government. Stability. We have programs here with the city already with a weatherization and minor home repair program. We are developing a displacement program for anyone that might be displaced by new development. And setting rental unit housing standards through code enforcement. All things that we can work on here to ensure the stability of our housing stock. And lastly, subsidies. What subsidies are available here at a local level to encourage the supply of housing? And that is largely through rental assistance programs and through our multifamily tax exemption. Now, explaining to the public that I know the council has heard this, but in the past comprehensive plan updates, we needed to show that we had a number of housing units that we could construct. That has evolved to new requirements showing that we are planning for income levels. So housing based that satisfies different income levels, including permanent supportive housing and different income bands. You can see up there on the screen. Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay.
AMI is based on the county, not on Bremerton on this chart, correct?
Yes. That is how HUD.
It's 1025 this year, is that correct?
I would have to look. I can look that up for the presentation.
Sounds about right.
Can make a note here. And my current, voila. And then we have the city allotment for the number of housing units by income band there on the right. Now, these numbers are already adopted by the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council. Every jurisdiction in Kitsap County has their share of each one of these income bands allotted for housing types.
So is the money the same in Bremerton as it is in Bainbridge Island?
For AMI?
No, for when you're projecting like 0 to 30% AMI, are they telling Bainbridge Island they need to build that percentage?
It's not a it is based off of the same share for each jurisdiction. Yes.
I think that's number of homes.
Right. So that's
This applies to Kitsap as an entirety, 1.1 million.
The whole region. Washington State.
Okay.
I should have said that. My apologies.
There we go.
Okay.
Washington State needs 1.1 million new homes in the next 20 years.
Good, because that would have been tough for us to build that.
So I will.
Build it, they will.
Yeah.
My apologies on not explaining it better. Okay. So
Just don't charge
put a
any
heading. But then on the right, what's expected from Southern?
And every city or in the county have different numbers.
Correct.
Within, so if we may be taking on more affordable housing.
Yeah, can we do it?
At Bainbridge. Yeah.
It's
Can
a
we do
larger
it?
table and I can show all the jurisdictions.
I would love to see that.
Okay.
What is fish?
Ish.
Permanent supportive housing.
Oh. Excuse me.
Okay. It doesn't mean necessarily that this housing is going to get built during this time period. It means that we are planning for it and creating a regulatory environment where that would allow these types of housing to be built, that we're planning for it. But that being said, the Department of Commerce has recognized that even some jurisdictions that were 125% of AMI earners may need some level of government subsidy to build that housing. So as you'll see, kind of a sliding scale from 125% down to less than 30% AMI is the more government subsidy that's required to actually build that housing. So is that government subsidy available and our market conditions right in order for this housing to be built? What we can focus on is planning for high density and uses, what the market and what the subsidy is available, what the market can do are somewhat out of our control. Another portion of the housing element are racially disparate impacts. So this is a new element that's required of the comprehensive plan also. And so we hit that historical context for what that means for Bremerton. Starting with Bremerton being historical territory of the Suquamish people. The Suquamish people having lived, gathered plants, collected ceremonial and spiritual items, hunted and fished since time immemorial in what is now Western Washington State. So, and then other interesting portions, recognizing Sinclair Park, consisting of 280 homes in Bremerton that were segregated to Black residents from 1943 to 1948, when all of those homes were demolished. And some additional information for the historic exclusion of Black and Asian populations from housing, exclusionary zoning racially restricted covenants and redlining, all in the housing element and housing appendix. Now, what does that mean today? If you are a white person, then you have a 50% chance in our city of owning your home, as opposed to households of color, where you are 35% likely to own your home.
I mean, that's further broken down into people who identify as Black are 12%, 11%.
Correct. This comprehensive plan effort also required a policy evaluation for racially disparate impacts, where were provided guidance from the Department of Commerce on how to review our goals and policies of our housing element and identify whether they were supportive, approaching, challenging, or not applicable. How that is applied, we have an example here at the bottom for H2G, partner with Community Development Block Grant and other applicable programs and funding sources to encourage removal or abatement of blighting influences in or around residential areas. Blighting carries with it negative historical connotations for people of color. So the replacement word here that's recommended is neglecting, which is defined by the International Property Maintenance Code. Is a more professional term to use. This is an example of the changes that we made.
Neglectful influences.
And lastly, our draft environmental impact statement, DEIS alternatives. This month we'll be issuing the DEIS, and it comes with a lot of table work, where you will see by alternative single family homes and multifamily units that are produced by zone per alternative 1, 2, and 3. Alternative 1 being our existing zoning code. If you follow that all the way down to the bottom, it results in a deficit of housing for our forecasted populations. And we also have that broken down by income band, by zone, by alternative, also in the housing appendix. So you can see the number of units that are needed for capacity and the AMI associated with individual zones. Now, this is a lot to look at. We will remind the public that the DEIS is coming out and that the district digest will be available to help boil down the final points.
When is it program run?
The DEIS,
The district digest.
concurrent with the DEIS.
Thank you.
And an opportunity for a question. And contact information at the bottom if anything public wants to check.
Okay. Councilors, any further questions? That we did kind of touch on some, but because next week we won't do the questions, it'll be the public, so we can now's our time for questions and feedback. Denise, yeah.
Where do the parking minimums fall in to the comp plan?
So we will be adopting the downtown sub-area plan concurrent with the comprehensive plan update. The actual parking minimums will be a separate effort when we update the develop the zoning code. So that will come to planning commission and the city council.
Okay, thank you.
So that slide deck, is that one of these attachments?
No, it's not included. I can make sure that it is considered.
Okay, thank you.
You're on the poverty slide. That's nice to see going down in Bremerton. Is it possible to add in the similar state comparison like the slide before it? The data exists in the county and state.
For how poverty is defined in the state.
Yeah.
I might be able to provide that information in a chart, but as like an aside, and then saying rates from Washington State during that time period. Is that
Yeah, if it's available. I just thought it was.
I thought it was state, county, and then
Can
Bremerton.
go back real quick.
That was the rent, that was the medians.
Oh,
Right.
I'm sorry.
And I'm thinking that was really useful for the rent. It would be useful for the poverty as well.
It'd be good, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good if you put the number in what's considered poverty level too. That might be a little bit shocking for people.
Of how far below poverty I actually am in real life.
No, for people who are making
Yeah.
$100,000 plus, seeing what
Mhm.
12% of our residents are living with.
Yes.
But if you want to say a very excellent framing of everything, that's really, really helpful data to have put in context.
It is.
There's a lot more in the housing appendix. There's, like I said, we could keep you here all night with charts and graphs, but this is we just wanted to provide a selection.
Thank you for not doing that.
Yeah.
Sure.
I just have a couple of questions. Early on in that slide deck, there was a little square that said, do you live or work in Bremerton? So I'm gonna quote the movie Mean Girls, like, why are we talking to people who don't even go here?
Yeah, that's even go.
We just had Mean Girls Day, didn't we, after?
You're asking me?
I am asking you, yes.
Well, a lot of portions that for the city of Bremerton, there's people that live in our urban growth areas that may be annexed in the future. There's people that work in the city of Bremerton. There's, so it's, who do you want to limit comment to is maybe more of an open question, but that's, I think, a running answer for people that might feel within that jurisdiction boundaries.
Okay, because I mean, there are the people that want to be here. The people in the UGA, as Director Spencer has at least once informed us, like every time they put it to a vote, it's like 90% or greater. People just go, no. So,
There are other means of incorporation.
well, can one incorporate like by eminent domain or something like that? Can we compel people?
If they're getting water from us, yes, we can.
How?
It's a good
Because they have to sign an agreement. But if
Are we
they're
in-
getting
are we in the-
Bremerton
Are
water,
we in the weeds a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Let's climb back out and
my
get focused back on
second
the
and final,
housing.
my second and final question
Mhm.
is something that has come up both in the land use element and in this element is there's subsidized housing. I think it's important. I think it's our responsibility to remind readers of this comprehensive plan that the mortgage interest tax deduction is a huge government subsidy.
It doesn't come to us.
It doesn't come to
Or
us,
we don't
but
give it away.
the people who are,
it is a big city.
yeah, the people who are, what is PISH, permanent supportive housing, that's also not coming to us. So it's like, I just think that it should be something incorporated. in our
You know what? Well, that's different. So what they're doing is highlighting the income levels that need additional housing, not highlighting the funding sources or the recipients of the funding source.
Supported housing.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying that,
The intersection of the three,
yeah,
of subsidy and what are the other two? I mean, there is an intersection,
I
so.
liked that graph. Yeah, good one. But because it's so easy for people to have contempt for those who are receiving subsidies from the government, and so easy for them to forget that they themselves, every homeowner who has a mortgage, is benefiting from this government subsidy. And I think that would be, honest, compassionate, we were talking about, what's the Bremerton brand? Honest, compassionate, direct.
Is this something else?
For us, though.
Is this something else that other counselors would like to see included in this?
Or could this be council comment afterwards?
It could be a comment, but
Agreed.
part of the thing though, I know you did the AMI based on HUD. And the question's been raised a few times on whether or not we can do it the AMI of Bremerton instead. So that, like right now, no, it'd be a different chart. Be totally different.
Director Spencer.
So all of the AMI stuff, so all of the income bands and all of the planning for population is actually in the countywide planning policy. And our numbers and our allocation is based on the HUD definition of AMI. And so all of our mandates from Washington State Department of Commerce to plan for members within the countywide planning policy is required to be in these established income bands. We can't be modifying the numbers we have this far. That's a different question when it comes to MSTE, but we can't mix those two together. It's the standard has been set for us of having to plan for the income band as established by the HUD in my standard. So we don't have the opportunity to change how these are defined right now.
Okay. Doesn't HUD have ELI?
Everything that we've done in the state of Washington is AMI. So I don't know what you want.
Extremely low income.
Yeah, and that's less than, that's the extreme poverty level of under 30%.
Yeah, but that's an acceptable, commonly used.
In all the charts and all the planning, it's all in these income categories that Garrett presented, which is consistent with countywide planning policies, et cetera. So we can't be changing the data at this point because of the planning construct.
Councilors, any other questions on this item?
Good presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so it'll be up for public comment only next week. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to circle back. So we're going to go back to items A1 and A2. So let me take a look and make sure we have our panelists. And I know that I had to turn one video off. Famous, I had turned your camera off earlier, but you can turn it on if you want to at this point in time. So this is Municipal Court Judge Tracy Flood with, and Judge Flood, do you have Will Kahn with Seattle's Finest?
Will, he was not able to be with us. He actually is at the airport, so.
Okay, and then we have Kyle Landry, consultant with Washington Administrative Office of the Courts, here to present on item A1, Bremerton Municipal Court 2024 to 2025 Safety Plan. You have 15 minutes allocated, so at 7:10, we'll open it up for questions from council.
Okay, I can make one adjustment. I combined the PowerPoint based on your email. Maybe I read it wrong. So, but I'll
find, okay, let's, so you have, your two presentations are one presentation?
In one, I put it in one PowerPoint, but I broke it up into two parts. So,
okay,
we should be good.
Right.
I'm gonna utilize the time that you gave me in your email.
Okay. So then, okay, so this is a combination of items A1 and A2. And so, yeah, please proceed. We'll take a break to ask questions at the 15-minute mark.
Okay, it isn't allowing me to do a screen share.
Oh, let me make you co-host.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody else need any other settings? Mr. Landry, are you good with your settings? Mr. Tyra?
I'm good.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Okay. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I combined both into the court improvement plans under one heading. Thank you for allowing for us to make this presentation today. The first presentation is going to be on the safety plan for the court when the court requested the increase in funding for safety and security, armed security at the court. There was the question raised of if the court had implemented a safety plan and was that required. There were several pieces and tools that we had together in working with ALC, with Mr. Kyle Landry, on getting a safety plan in place. And now we have that guide. And I just wanted to highlight a few points on that the court incidents guide is designed as a quick reference, providing guidance and directions during many more probable incidents that may take place around our court, the area. The guide is not intended to replace or conflict with any of the city's policies or the city of Bremerton's policy manuals around safety and security that may be held, like for the Norm Dix building or anything like that, or anything that is already in place, but created as a tool to increase incident response and efficiency for us at the court. And one of the things that I want to share with you is the adoption of somewhat of what is a flow chart of situation and the different responses of that are in place and actions that are needed. The important thing to highlight to you also is that incidents that happen at the court, we are required to report every incident to AOC. And they track those incidents. They track incidents that happen at courts all around the state. There has been a heightened level of incidents that have happened around the country with judges and safety issues and incidents at courthouses. And we're not privy to those things happening. We have had multiple incidents that have happened since we've had security. And I'm going to let Kyle speak to national trends and noting of the security incidents with the state as we're required to do.
Yeah, so hopping on in here, nationwide, we are seeing increases in incidents and threats to judges, as well as government buildings in general. And so within the state of Washington, we began requiring courts to report to us incidents in 2016. It was late 2016, about November, December. So 2017 is the first full year of data that we have. And so between 2017 and 2023, the last full year that we have, we had a 640% increase in incidents in courts from 90 to 224, and that's annually. Similarly, with threats, we had a 147% increase from 2017, from about 5 back in 2017 to 37 last year. And I do want to stress that that is probably underreported. Every time I talk about that to judges, a lot of times they say, oh, I had, a cluster of 5 that happened. I didn't report it or whatever it was. So those numbers are probably a little bit lower, but as far as what we have reported to us, 37 last year, 40 in 2022. And for both incidents and threats, we did see a slight drop in 2020, 2021 for obvious reasons as we were closed. But additionally, we had the severity of incidents was increasing year over year. And so last year was the first year that we had more than 50% of the overall incidents classified as critical incidents. And so critical incidents are incidents that present an actual threat of harm to staff. So things like security going around the building and finding drugs in a bush. That's a incident related to a court, but that is not a critical incident. The critical incident would be actually presenting a threat of harm to personnel. Not just court staff, but also court users who are also important. That is why we really do want court security in place. So this isn't just in Washington. Like I said, nationwide, this is happening. I've talked to Texas and Utah. They are both seeing significant jumps, as well as the U.S. Marshals data indicates, I believe it was about an 800% jump since 2015 in threats to judges specifically, not staff. And so we are seeing increases in this sort of behavior across the state. And 2 pretty relevant instances recently in September occurred. September 19th, we had the murder in Kentucky of Judge Mullins, which highlighted the threat of insider attacks, people that have access to our government buildings. And then on September 25th, we had the bombing of the courthouse in Santa Maria. That's the Santa Barbara District Court. And that began with targeting the security station at the front of the building. And it was really stopped because one, the injuries were minimal to those officers, but there were officers on site who were able to stop him as he went back to his car to get his firearms to finish the job and attack that judge that was supposed to have his hearing. I think it was like 5 minutes later than that. And so we do really want to highlight that the importance of personnel on site is really key. It is beyond just the court security committee. That is really the secondary thing, is court security committee, get locks on your doors, have duress buttons, get security personnel. And one security officer is great. Two is better, because if you have one that has to respond to an incident occurring somewhere, that leaves either your judge or your front door unprotected. And as we know, incidents do come in clusters at times. And so I'm trying to be aware of our time. I see that's 7 o'clock. And so I'm trying to rush here a little bit, but overall, I just want to say nationwide, we are seeing some pretty big increases. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that filtering over into other government buildings as well. I know that Vancouver just had a pretty nasty incident yesterday involving explosive devices. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to Judge Flood.
Thank you, Kyle. And so basically where we are is we have the written up plan. We want to provide security, but the incident, see what the initial responses is being able to make sure that our employees are trained and know where emergency plans are, what to do inside of the building, and designated meeting spots and emergencies. And we also, for that incident flow chart that I showed, staffings, when to call 911, when to call maintenance, when there would necessarily be a need to have a lockdown, shelter in place, evacuation, packages that are suspicious, bomb threats that we're hearing about, but other types of emergencies, understanding power outages. What do we do? Because power outages for us are very crucial. Daily, we are online for our hearings with the jail. And we've had to deal with that with COVID and then the snowstorm and how do you deal with emergency orders? So understanding all that, earthquake, we're prone to earthquake, and forgive the typo, that should be utilities. So I'll fix that before I send the final over for you guys, for everyone. But that is utilities, employee injury, workplace violence, civil disturbance, hazardous materials. And you heard from the court when we asked for the funding for Seattle's finest, of the incidents that were increasing. Since then, we've still had multiple incidents and people coming in with machetes, different dangerous weapons coming to the courthouse with these things on their persons. So there is so many moving parts as to what we need, and then establishing a committee, being able to, our public safety committee is an area where we bring concerns. We have our police chief there, we have our fire chief in those meetings, and being able to present the information through that safety committee is built into our plan as well. Will Cohen, unfortunately, was unable to be with us, but he did want us, me to share with you that his years of experience throughout the courts in the Seattle area, and as a retired police officer, he, at the level that we have the volume of foot traffic that comes through the court, he believes that it would be a high risk for us not to have the two officers the way that we have them now. And he is on a part of our safety committee for the courthouse as well. So Seattle's Finest has been able to provide us the extra support that has been basically approved. And we have utilized those funds very wisely and providing the security that's needed on our heaviest volume days, which include Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. Thursdays is trial days, Fridays is half the day. So we're still under 40 hours a week, but we hover around 32 on that extra security. We have had incidents of continuing running from the courtroom. When it's time to take them in custody, we do have to call 911 to get the Bremerton Police Department there to transport anytime we're taking someone in custody. So those things continue. And I'll pause there for any questions on the information provided on the safety plan.
Fantastic. Thank you, Judge Flood. Counselors, we've got about 5 minutes for Q&A, and then we'll go back into the rest of her 15 minutes, the rest of her 30 minutes total, another 15-minute presentation. Any questions? We'll go Jeff and then Anna.
Just real quick, thanks, Judge. Is this all in a document that's able to be viewed, or like is
yes,
there
there is an actual document plan that I will share with you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Anna.
Thank you. Good evening, Judge Flood. Mr. Landry gave examples of non-critical incidents. What would be some examples of critical incidents?
So critical incidents might involve things like
I mean, what could have happened?
Oh, you want I'm hesitant to give actual specifics for incidents that have happened just because our general rules, our courts submit their incidents to us with details so that they under the impression that they won't be released into the public sphere. But I'd be happy to give you the actual data for the incidents. I can release that to you guys.
That would be great.
That would be really great.
Absolutely.
And then my second question is, I've been to the court. I got sworn in at the court. The guard has a metal detector, so I was curious how weapons were being brought in despite the metal detector and the guard on duty.
That might be a Judge Flood question.
So even though there is a metal detector at the front door, our front door security officer is merchant patrol, so he is unarmed. People, defendants, the public come in to the courthouse with things on their persons, with no.
So they're not being let through to the courtroom, but they're bringing them and they're being caught at the metal detector essentially.
Yes, and some things have gotten there's been some things that have gotten through the metal detector as well, because when they check in, they then check into probation upstairs or come into the courthouse, and then our upstairs security officer, which is Seattle's finest, has caught some things as well.
Thank you. Okay. Is it okay if I go ahead and defer to another counselor for the?
Here's everything I was going to say. Thank you, Judge Flood.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other counselor? Any other questions? I have a question about data. Mr. Landry, really quick. I only have about 1 more minute on this Q&A. You said that there was a mandatory reporting period there's now mandatory reporting. When did that begin of court threats?
So mandatory reporting began in 2016, technically, so about November, December, I want to say. And then, so 2017 is the first full year of data that we have.
Okay. And I just wondered if that was the reason why there was an uptick, is because of this requirement is catching on. That I guess a data skew could occur if people aren't used to reporting, and then now there's a system in place for reporting. Do you believe that that is the case for the uptick in court threats, that people are now mandated to report, or is there, I respect what you're saying about underreporting, and so I don't want to diminish that possible truth, which would be your opinion.
Absolutely. In my opinion, it is actually the opposite. I think that there's a lack of education about the reporting requirements, especially with the turnover during the pandemic and following years.
Thank you. Okay, I would love to turn it back over. Do you have one quick question, Jeff?
That data exists for DMC. Is it possible for us to get it?
I think we're very concerned specifically with BMC and how the reported threats for BMC are for the past since 2016. Is there any way we can obtain that data?
I would be happy to release them to Judge Flood, and Judge Flood can do with them what she wishes. Does that sound okay to the City Council?
Okay, so and Judge,
sensitive, can we do like an executive session?
We can do an executive session for that.
Yeah.
So you can only release it to the judge. You can't release it to the council.
I think to protect myself, I should not release the data to a public entity for the time being.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I'm happy to provide you guys with data that I can. It's just more the specifics of it. Typically, the way that we run that is we will provide it to the court who precipitated. Yep.
Counselors, do you understand that? Okay, great.
Sure.
All right, Judge Flood, please feel free to proceed with the next 15 minutes of your presentation.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the Bremerton Municipal Court improvement plans, and the plan includes strengthening our courts, strengthening our community. It's the People's Court, and I am presiding as we are a one court bench. I felt it was important to start with a quote from our one of our Supreme Court justices. And since there's been so many incidents around with courts and issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I felt this quote was fitting for the next steps. This and when she's Justice Montoya Lewis is referring to the Washington State Supreme Court and the actions and the statements they have made for all of our courts as courts of limited jurisdiction, and then our district and municipal courts as courts of limited jurisdiction, and then our Superior Court and our courts of appeal all come up under our Supreme Court. We do have what is called meetings and sessions with our Supreme Court, where the court meets with the divisions and the regions that they're in, and we provide updates as to how things are going in our courts. And the quote here, this court has stated unequivocally that we owe a duty to increase access to justice, reduce and eradicate racism and prejudices, and to continue the development of our legal system into one that serves the ends of justice. And then I go to what is the Henderson case, in which this was a case that the Supreme Court looked at, and it's important for our court and we believe the City Council to understand when we have jury trials, the jury members look at videos. We're always updating our materials for the jury. We have a video that the federal court used, and we have received permission to be able to share that video. And it talks about biases. And in our most recent jury trial, I had some of the jurors that stayed around, and one of their comments was they felt that that was one of the best descriptions and informative pieces of educational materials on biases in the court. So the Henderson case, and I believe we just today, the state has also updated their materials to include more information. And so we will have an additional video available for our trials. But there is in this case, the Henderson was labeled as an angry Black woman, as confrontational, combative, stereotypes that place Black women as being untrustworthy and motivated to acquire unearned financial gain. And this language is language that the Supreme Court came back and made this quote that coded dog whistle language impermissibly allows the speaker to appeal to racial biases and then excuse the behavior by arguing that he did not intend to say anything racist. So I wanted to start there because this is something that we are faced with every day. I'm faced with daily in the work that we do, and the people that come before me and the people that work with us. And I want to move our focus to, there is no concern about the overall quality of justice administered in the Bremerton Municipal Court by the judges, the clerks, the prosecutors, the public defenders, and the probation officers. There is a concern about the management of the internal workings of the court and whether it's adequately functioning with the new staff, how the court operations work, and with these circumstances. The question that I pose and that we're presenting is, do we strengthen our court to overcome the issues that have surfaced, or do we abandon the court and the improvements that have been made thus far? And we are looking at what's to come. There's jail cost involved in how justice is executed. And I put this in here when I say jail costs, because one of the things that you are aware of is the community court program, therapeutic court, addressing substance use and mental health use. And we are unique in that there are several programs at the county level, but this is the only program at the municipal court level for our resource fairs. It has proven to be very successful in outreach in our community and with our defendants that are on probation. So the question, punishment versus rehabilitation, strict versus lenient or fair, how do we weigh that? And this is what the plan is. We have a fixed budget, and the increasing, we look at how numbers are looked at, the management of our dockets, the management of our staff, setting up priorities, our e-tickets, and how the billing is done and making sure the money comes in more efficiently. And all of those systems that we had requested to be in place have now been in place. And the touching of the electronic processing of the e-tickets, where it was taking 2 and 3 and 4 touches, has resolved itself with the programs that we have been able to bring in. Using electronic forms, increasing the training on that with all of our staff in the court, as well as those that are at prosecutors, defense attorneys, when they come in, so that they can be able to utilize those tools that we have in place. Also, knowing that I was elected in November of 2021. It was during the height of COVID. We've tried using logic and reason to help with the improvements that we've made. We have not been in a position of authority very long here in the court. We don't have the history that the previous administration has. As the presiding judge and a single court judge, the level of work that comes in, AOC has us nearly needing 2 judges. That is the level. I've spoken on that before at the state of the courts. I am not the spokesperson for the city. I'm unable to speak on behalf of the city. I can only speak on behalf of the court. The changes that we've been able to make the last 2 years and 10 months is in our courtrooms, bringing our equipment up to date through bringing in grant funds. Our calendars, we've been able to have now 2 interpreter calendars where we have nearly 100% of participants, our treatment court program. And I do want Mr. Famous to speak to our treatment program and how that's going, and as an update.
Good evening. With our treatment court, where we see the most effectiveness is with family. Most people that come to the court, their families have been dealing with whatever chemical dependency or mental health issues they've had for years. And they've come to the point to where they're exhausted. They've tried to exhaust every measure they could in the system, and it's failed them at every point. With therapeutic court, we're able to give those family hope. And in giving them hope, they re-engage with their family, they re-engage with the defendant. And the support that we get is overwhelming. And so we're able, and so it's not just the court, but it's that family support that's coming in. We're communicating with families. We're getting people into treatment. People who need treatment are getting into treatment. People who need mental health are getting into mental health. And so it versus in the past where that person might be ordered to get mental health treatment and they never go, they can't afford it. There's some other barrier, transportation, anything that can stop them from getting engaged. But with therapeutic court, we're able to transport people to treatment. We're able to have chemical dependency treatment providers right here in therapeutic court that can complete assessments, complete mental health assessments, and immediately get people help that they need versus it taking months to do so.
Thank you. And as I indicated, the resource fairs, we're averaging over 100 participants at our last 3 resource fairs in attendance. And the last 2, we had clerks on site to address those individuals coming in with issues. That includes our regular active probation nurse as well. And I indicate and show that I attended in-person judicial college this winter in 2024, because when I became a full-time judge, it was COVID. There was no in-person judicial college. I have also, in June, the state provided Better Together training for the court administrators and presiding judges to work together as teams and to provide that support to build those relationships and strengthen those relationships. I have been a presenter. In 2023, I presented at the Pro Tem training, and I just recently presented at the Business and Solo Practices conference that the WSBA put on. So that being said, what we're moving to for the court improvements is a Law and Justice Coordinated Committee. We wanted to build communication, trust, and transparency. We want to have the stakeholders representation, and for that to include 3 citizens, and to be able to, coming through public safety, present a resolution that would create the Law and Justice Coordinating Committee for the court. Thank you. There's
there it is.
There's a thank you.
All right.
I'm like, there's a thank you. I'm like, it's there.
It's there.
Thank you so much, Judge Flood. Okay, so we've got about 5 more minutes for questions, counselors.
Can you scroll back, Judge Flood, to that last slide? I was taking notes about the committee.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
of course, you're probably going to send this to us.
Yes,
so
yes. So the Law and Justice Coordinating Committee is what I'm, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's coming to public safety at some point for review. Okay.
Yes.
So our chair has that on her radar. That's wonderful. Jeff, or Denise, do you have any other questions in the meantime at public safety chair?
I've been listening, and I'm looking forward to seeing it advance to a plan that we can review, both the safety and the improvement plan. There isn't a lot to comment on right now.
Thank you. Jeff?
That was just going to be my question. Is there a written work plan at the moment, or is that going to be sent to us later?
So the because of the length of it, then yes, it'll be sent to you later.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
So, and that's the public, the safety plan is probably around 20 pages. And then, so yes.
Gotcha, there'll be a separate document.
Two separate documents. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so, and just to clarify, Jeff, what you were asking for is there a work plan that we're going to see? That because this didn't feel like exactly a work plan, but just a highlight of some ideas.
Yes.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So what I presented was the bullet points from within the overall arching plan itself versus you would not have had enough time to go through a 20-page document or
Okay.
And it's wordy.
All right. Jane.
Judge Flood, could you make sure we get a copy of this PowerPoint?
The slides? Yes. Miss Lori, I think, told me to send it to her or Angela. So yes, I told them that.
Lori, yeah. You can just send it to city.council. It's just something we need to have in our packet. So since it's a public meeting. And I don't have any questions.
I did want to know that in working on the court improvements plan, there's a few other courts that have had some challenges and issues around the state, and I work very closely with Judge David Larson out of Federal Way on the plan.
Great. So yeah, it's always why recreate the wheel if you can, use what other people are doing, right?
And especially when you've got single court benches and the smaller courts, the issues tend to circulate themselves in community more than people realize.
That does bring me to, I was intrigued by that idea that you'd like to see another judge hired in our city. And so is that what you were proposing? Can you just briefly kind of give me a little more explanation about your proposal for an additional judge? Because that is kind of intriguing.
So what I'm proposing is, I believe what came to city council in maybe 2016 under the previous judge.
Sure.
He asked for there to be a 0.75, 0.8 commissioner's position. So right now, and council member Denise, you've heard me present at city at our safety about all the duties that I perform, and that the commissioner is only there Wednesday afternoons, and then a pro tem twice a month covering the traffic infractions calendar.
Yes.
So the amount of work as the presiding judge and the committees that are required, the reports that we have to do, in addition to the day-to-day calendars, the after-hour warrants, the weekend review. We have two prosecutors, but one maybe what could be considered 1.45 judges.
Yeah,
but the commissioner is
sure.
it just needs to be balanced. And what I am not advocating for a full-time, but I believe that
additional FTE for
yes.
a program.
Yes.
Okay. That's something you're advocating for. So we'll
yes.
hear about that in your work plan, and I'm sure towards budget season.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I think that I'm glad that we can make this work. I'm so glad that we were able to fit you in here and we don't have to put you off for another week. So this is all good information. A lot to consider. And
thank you. And again, my apologies because I was emailing with David and I ended up sending my links to the panelists, and he said I wasn't supposed to do that, and then I got locked out so on my account. So
all right. Well, Mr. Landry, thank you for sticking around. Mr. Tyra, thank you for sticking around. We're glad you're able to be part of this presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Judge Flood.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Okay. So we are, I'm gonna go ahead. She's good. Okay, fantastic. All right, folks, we're done. We're on to general council business. Each item is approximately 5 minutes, including Q&A. We'll see how that goes. If you need more time, of course, just take it. But that was actually quite a timely presentation, y'all.
Yeah.
So Public Safety Committee Chair, Denise Fry, can you please provide a brief summary of the last meeting held on October 3rd?
Yes, and I want to ask my fellow committee members to fill in as needed. We had a great presentation, not normally heard of public safety around code enforcement. And one might ask, what does code enforcement have to do with, where is it on the continuum? It is linked on early stages of crime, right? And so that's why this was heard in public safety. And I was impressed. She also did a great infographic, if you haven't noticed it. Our city attorney created this, and it's a valuable tool. This is for our rental or landlord registration program. They, meaning Kylie, our city attorney, and also Director Spencer with Community Development, have been working together. Interesting to know that we do have about 1,600 renters or landlords registered. We have over 40,000 people in Bremerton, and over half are renters. So it tells you we've got a great opportunity to register more landlords in Bremerton and help work with them. Some of the benefits to these changes in the code around this, and Kylie's here, so thank you for that. It would be unlawful for a landlord to raise a rent or to evict without a current valid registration. Of course, we'll dive into the details, I'm sure, at another time. There was some discussion around this. The whole thing is to incentivize compliance, make people aware that the program's there, help work with the unsafe properties. Again, there's a hammer, a little bit more of a hammer as well as a carrot. So there's relocation funding, no impact to law-abiding landlords, which was a concern. And then there's money available to help landlords improve their properties. Important to note, this was discussed, we are not considering changing the fees right now. We're beginning with these other elements. We can't just unilaterally start charging a fee without it being related to something we're doing or working on. And maybe as we grow this, there would be more opportunities. So what am I forgetting? I feel like
I would like. Well, part of the thing that I think is really important for everybody to know is that the city doesn't do the actual inspections. Like if a tenant calls up and says, calls code enforcement and says, we have rats or our electrical is messed up. Then the city forces the property owner to hire an inspector to do that work. Not,
I'm getting different.
There's two things.
What? Yeah.
Stuart
That's
will
not-
investigate that and then write them up as a code violation. Well, not Stuart, it could be Ian or.
right.
But if someone in code enforcement does the inspection, the tenant, but then.
An initial inspection.
Right, and so then triggers the notice of violation process and in some cases, a notice to vacate process. But subsequently to that, when it's a rental property, we can include that they have to supply the city with a third-party inspection. And so at the outset, you are considered given the benefit of the doubt that you're going to comply with the law and you're going to rent out premises that comply with the law. If we get word otherwise, and that's then you're going to fall into that category of having to provide third-party inspections that we don't do. They have to pay for something that's separate, and there's a process for that.
Also help us with determining permanent for that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then the thing about no new fees was we can't legally charge somebody for a business license for every single unit they have, because that's really what that $75 fee is, a business license. So, I had talked about, well, maybe if you have 100 units, you should pay more, but it's just one business license because
You could look at that though.
We can eventually, well, I don't want to
Staggered.
hold up some of the changes that we're wanting to make right now. So right now, let's just note it.
I know I'm supposed to go last, but can I just really quick ask okay. Are we going to have a clearinghouse that we can a lookup, a landlord lookup?
Yeah, that's what the goal is.
Okay.
I'm really kind of excited because
Right,
they're
because-
taking the opportunity to build some,
Then
they're
tenants can just
building a
Google
database.
search and see if they're,
Instead of calling in.
Director Spencer went through
and any advocates to assist.
Yeah.
being done by the department to clean up the database process going on so that can go live.
Thank you.
And
There's a
so,
retiree and
yeah.
But it's not going to be embedded in the code change.
No.
But it could.
Implementation side.
Okay, it's internal implementation, but I would like to advocate for us to embed wording for a clearinghouse requirement for individuals. I'm just advocating for that. I think you smell what I'm cooking, folks. Anna, I agree.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
No, I think it's a good idea. Actually, I have this on my computer at home because I hadn't realized that you were going to bring it up tonight. But there were actually two different PMCs that regulate business licenses, and the one for I don't have the chapter and verse in front of me, but it explicitly states that business licenses shall be for each single location throughout the city, except it goes on to say, for landlords for whom one business license will cover however many locations they have. Obviously, if at any time this council would like to charge per $75 per unit, I will be on your side. But I did come up with something that I thought might be useful for us to think about, which is, how the water utility building has everything all set up. If you're make less than 40 grand, right? They have all the forms and the paperwork, you can get a break. Let landlords pass the $6 a month on to their tenants. And if people make less than 40,000, let us use the money that comes from, I'm just saying, I understand that I don't have the will of the council with me now. I'm just going to finish this and stop. That we could, just as we're providing relocation assistance and rental assistance, this would be a fund from which we could easily and readily pay those fees, $6 a month.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I did have one other thing that's possibly not.
Can we-
irritating.
Okay, but let's go ahead to Jeff because he was next and you had some time and I want to make it fair.
I just want to clarify, this is coming to a future study session for us to have detailed discussion.
Yeah, there's still some things that we need to work out. So,
Yeah.
one of the two, rental, or relocation assistance pieces are, those are taken from state law, and particularly the one
Okay.
for properties that are not, bad landlords, they're just improving their property. Has a whole appeal process related to the determination of what's local income and who's entitled to relocation assistance. And so we need to work out the details of how that's going to work, because there's an income determination. And so we will be bringing it back though. So there's going to be more discussion on this. I think there's
Might as well be HUD AMI like everything else.
it is. It's actually said in this. It's actually said in the state law. We don't even get to tweak. Yeah.
And another high level comment at this time is to,
Can be changed.
so far it sounds like the whole discussion's been on residential only. Yeah, I think we need making that clear as we go forward. So
Yeah, as opposed to
was a
commercial.
landlord and had concerns.
Yeah.
But that had not occurred to me earlier in discussion.
Yeah.
So,
This is
You know what?
yeah.
Small business.
And this is not a conflict of interest, by the way.
No.
Yes.
so.
We were talking
I
about
guess the
conflict.
highlight of the other done in the public safety committee is that at this time there's not a lot of change for law-abiding landlords. The one piece that, and this is just an implementation piece, is on the green column there. For landlords that do improve their property and it rises to the level that relocation is necessary for that improvement. And it's not done in just the normal course of that, in unit vacating, stuff like that. If they
Heating blanket.
that relocation would be required under this code, but under state law, we do housing. The city does $1,000 and the landlord does $1,000. And those dollar amounts are set in the state law as well. And so I think that doesn't represent an increased cost. Right now, that's not required.
Yeah.
So just letting people know that.
Yeah, consider.
There's a lot of stuff in there about like at what point does the tenant know about it, and it gets
Yeah.
really detailed. So
It is. It's really wonderful. I'm excited to see it at a future study session. So,
Yeah.
Really good work. Investing like this in rental, I mean, we're basically, I hope, improving the rental market really for renters by doing that.
yeah,
So
it does.
continually working on it.
It does seem to be something along the lines of tenants' rights, which is why I would love to see the clearinghouse embedded, or something.
Because everybody wants to know, how do I look up if my landlord is registered or not? There's no way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Was there anything else to share out on public safety? This was the big issue. So
There was long-term funding,
Thank you, Karen.
sustainability for public safety, always on our agenda. The chief had sent a City of Vancouver community police, community advisory committee report. And it just seemed really well done. City of Vancouver is doing a lot of great things with redevelopment and growth and all of that, managing growth. And anyway, I encourage all of council to read it. We're going to have to start talking about how we're going to be paying for this. And I think this report does a really good job. What I love about it is it was so community driven. And I think our chief has established really good relationships in the community. There is food for thought and possibly to act on with this study. So yeah, that was really the two primary focuses, I think.
Right.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the rental stuff.
That's exciting to see it coming forward.
I have a public safety committee question.
Okay.
So I was just wondering, because you guys all heard me give my council report last week. So that was basically the same thing as the email that I had sent to you. So I was just wondering, because I could often be wrong, is it inaccurate? Does it hurt the community if enforcement happens at a low level instead of waiting until it escalates?
ridiculous.
Thank you, Denise.
It really
Part of
is.
it is
I think you're being insincere with that question.
Yeah, I guess I'd love to have some.
Windows theory, and that's why I'm.
You know,
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and, that we need to have some decorum. So I don't think that.
I'm truly asking.
You're truly asking. So, I think that's a conversation that's had together.
Prevention is always, I could speak for any law enforcement officer is going to tell you, we'd love to get to them earlier.
Can I make a comment on this?
You really can't right now.
You know,
I've also been told that Chief Wolf has responded to this line of questioning via email and so forth and so on. I really don't know what to do with it anymore.
Okay, was he able to talk about, he's mentioned a number of times that the state legislature has urged him very strongly, or urged police
Not to
departments
engage in negative.
not to engage in low level. So do you know, like, is there some law in which that's embodied or?
I don't think that this is an appropriate line of questioning because this has to do with administrative policy. We don't dictate internal administrative policy, nor do we dictate the police code. And in the future, if there's frustration with how a counselor presents a question, we probably should act with a little decorum and not be too insulting with each other. But I do understand the frustration of being asked over and over and over.
Ask a question is insulting.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been for a long time.
So I understand. Yeah. Jane, do you have a quick? Yeah.
Quick. So there have been discussions that we on public safety should be engaging police and fire, especially to find out if some of the ordinances that we have in place, if they're not helpful to them, how can we rewrite them so that they are more helpful? And I think, some of our ordinance right now says, police will do blah, 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 right? Well, we have 64 police officers and we have a big city, so they can't do all of it. So maybe we can help craft new ordinances that still get the job done, but not maybe take them so much time. And then there's, what is the court? If the court's just going to throw it out, is it a waste of the police department's time? But it's a discussion for another day, and it hasn't been done in depth at public safety yet.
It sounds like it's best.
Sounds like a retreat topic.
Oh, a retreat topic.
Because
we better have more than 1 day retreat then.
Yeah.
Like at least 3 now.
We've got 3 days. We've got to give them time.
2 half days.
We cannot.
No, 2 half days is not enough.
I was saying that because this is something I don't know whether we're going to adequately resolve.
I think it's definitely worth discussion, but also, we need to also kind of defer to the internal policies that exist. The Washington, anyway, I'm going to stop. But so possible retreat topic, and you guys want to have a 3-day retreat, huh? Well, okay.
At least 2.
And we'll see about that. So other than that, I'd like to invite anybody who's attended a regional or other committee or board since the last study session to provide a brief summary if they choose.
Kitsap Transit was canceled.
Okay.
At 3.
Well, I've got KRCC, but you can piggyback me, right?
I'll go for KRCC.
Okay. Yeah. Big deal. Countywide ADU, pre-approved plans. They were really pretty awesome. All these plans, how you could modify each
started it first, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, we first.
No, actually, I think it might have been.
Los Angeles has had them for a couple of years now.
So we are now like in a collaborative, and can both of you remind me all the different? I mean, it's countywide, but we have Paulsbo, who was actually the planning commission or planning committee who was presenting on it.
So KRCC is executing a contract with a firm to provide 4 to 5 cash designs.
Yeah.
That could be used across the county, all the different cities.
And so it's a streamlined system. And I just thought it was really cool, the different modifications you could make on each of those designs. That was a big thing come out of KRCC. Do you want to piggyback me on anything else? We have a legislative reception coming up in December. Those are my big takeaways from KRCC. I mean, there were lots of other topics, but do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, there's also talk on Gorst and keeping an eye on that issue and tying into if the CCA is repealed, the legislative reception in December, they want to focus on transportation prioritization. An idea, great idea from the mayor there, to just have that in our ready to go, so that the KRCC can start getting legislative priorities when the new year comes.
Yeah. All right, go ahead and.
Mile Hill facility in Port Orchard is close to opening. Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeff, you want to finish this out with any other?
Yeah. The other one was the social media 101 training. You want me to report back on?
If you want to. It was on our agenda, but whatever you want. Yeah, you're ready to present. Go for it.
Sounds good. You put it on the agenda last time, yeah. But essentially, not a huge update from when we passed our social media policy. There was a Supreme Court case this year involving a city manager that mixed personal and city business on their personal Facebook page, and specifically with First Amendment rights, because then that city manager also blocked citizens from commenting. And interestingly, in the ruling, as far as First Amendment goes, is it kind of overrode the existing Washington restrictions. And so prior to that court ruling, you could be, correct me, you could essentially be guilty of violating someone's First Amendment rights if there was the perception you were speaking on behalf of the city. But the court actually made it harder. It said to be that you actually had to have authority to speak on behalf of the city. So it was, yeah, and a little more protections there as far as, not violating First Amendments. But they did go into records retention and, if you're talking city business online, then you may get asked for public records request and those records. So that's all still the same. And then the OPMA violations, again, I think we're all good about this, but making sure if there's a Facebook post, we're not all commenting at the same time. And they did delve into, even there's been a case recently of using emojis or likes. So like, let's say Denise posts something about, I want to pass this pro law, right? As an example. And then I give a thumbs up and Michael gives a thumbs up, likes it, like that counts as to basically consider that a comment. So I would like to publicly state that I have blocked all y'all on social media. You're all blocked on social media, so I'm blissfully ignorant.
Did you see the thing about the multiple references in Paulsboro?
Yeah. To be blissfully ignorant. There's going to be times that we're commenting on the same thing and I have no idea, which I love that.
I think our existing.
But I love all of you.
Yeah. Media policy of
really
have a separate account if you can, and they're about discussing city business online is still up to date, but also the slides if anyone wants.
Yes,
thank you.
Reminders are always good.
Yeah. And then my last item was meeting with the Affordable Housing Task Force regarding the shelter. And specifically at this time, as I mentioned, about a month ago, wanted to keep an eye on that ARPA obligation. Director Riley mentioned coming up. And so essentially discussed with Director Riley and the partners. And so my proposal is things are very, very close on a site. Hopefully know by the end of this month, for sure or not. And so what I would propose is, we do have a way to obligate the funds now if we really wanted. Essentially, I believe the proposal would be to obligate it by a contract to BHA, who could then subcontract, and it can be used for design services or engineering or purchase of needed equipment. It's obviously, I think, better if we have the site known, makes it a little more specific, not necessarily required. But the reason not to necessarily rush it is that if we get to December and there's no good obligation plan, we will not lose that money. We can obligate it to essentially public safety as one of the available mechanisms. So there's a fallback. So yeah, to make
A
sure.
little
that we don't-
encumbrance.
So like I was getting that, money in December, then it frees it up in the general fund.
Okay.
So there is a very nice fallback to make sure, we never lose that federal money. It stays in the city. But we have mechanisms that we're working to get that money allocated directly.
Okay.
So if council is good with that approach, then we'll hopefully bring something by early November to.
James.
So, Director Nucky brought it to my attention when I was back east. I didn't send Jeff my notes from the Public Works Committee meeting. And one thing that we discussed in great detail was a work plan that they have put together if we, as a council, agree to raise the motor vehicle transportation benefit district funding. So that would be something that Public Works would bring to a study session for us when we're ready to listen to it.
Okay. Any other report outs? All right. All right. Well, it's 8:00. Do we have any?
Go to
the order. Michael.
Yeah, I think I can provide that. Back to, kind of on this Zoom talk we had earlier.
Okay.
Just kind of thinking on it.
Circle back to
the rest of the meeting. I kind of think that maybe in our procedures we should have a little bit of a policy on when it's acceptable for somebody to do Zoom. I mean, I could just if I could just Zoom in every week from home. And I could have dinner on time and all my things. But I just think, as elected officials to be here, as city staff, we need to be here, be present and present. And so.
Okay. Do you mean like other departments as well? Or just an internal policy for us? We should.
I think that there needs to be, I think attending something by Zoom should be an exception.
Yes.
I think that's in our current council bylaws.
It's that way for members of council. I don't think it's
Right.
that way.
Yeah.
So we have something internal for us, but not for our guests.
Pretty sure Jeff.
Good gracious, though.
Sometimes they're
They're consultants and,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
okay.
That's the case where you would say, fine.
So then they should be asking, you feel that they should ask permission of the council president to attend by Zoom rather than in person.
Elected officials or a staff.
We are moving away from the big crisis of COVID.
Attendance in person and then special permission.
I mean, you kind of got to show up for court, right?
No, before there were many hearings that were
Right, but I mean,
by Zoom, but even after a lot of the.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
all right.
Okay. So,
And we have no way.
sounds like
Sit
it's
up and show up.
suit up and show up. I do
Yeah,
like
like the
seeing
drama
people
pants.
in person.
I mean, I put on a t-shirt.
We'll sit along.
Okay, so this doesn't feel imperative
Oh, no, just
prior to budget season. Maybe it's something we can discuss after budget season in a
next time we look at the
study session.
supers.
Okay. Okay.
Or it just be something that
Probably at a retreat.
it's something,
Yeah, I was just going to
it's
say.
something that chair could just manage on their own.
Okay. Let me put some thought into it and talk with Lori about how it's been done in the past, since I've only been here since COVID, literally.
A few more years ahead of you.
Oh, gracious. Okay. Any other good of the order? Jeff?
Yeah, well, quick one, thinking about CRCC's discussion on legislative priorities.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have it on our calendar, all our other busy stuff, but I want to make sure we track to discuss legislative priorities
Before December.
Yeah.
AWC.
Yeah, we could, it probably makes sense to wait until after November 5th, finding out some impacts, but.
Yes.
But I think somewhere
Why would that
between
be?
there and December, if we can have a discussion there.
Do you mean prior to our legislative with our legislative reception, or do you mean prior to AWC?
prior to the new year and the new state session, but so that
Right.
we as council can say these are legislative priorities for our
Okay, I love it.
elected reps. Yeah.
And hopefully they're represented in our own goals and policies too.
I love talking about that more than Zoom, but they're both important. But yeah, so let's make sure to get that done after November 5th. Yeah. So any other good of the order? Okay. All right. Next council meeting will be on Wednesday, October 16th, starting at 5:30 in the first floor meeting chambers of the Norm Dix Government Center. The public is invited to attend in person or remotely, but anyone wishing to speak during public recognition via Zoom must submit their request to the city clerk by calling 360-473-5323 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Meeting is